Hello, everyone. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate Rural Talk Radio Network, a subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. The views of the guests may not represent those of the host of the station. Folks, I have two extra special guests with me today, and I'm so excited to have two guests on my show today. I'm going to tell you a little about each guest before I bring them on. The first guest, I'll introduce Lisa Endo Cooper. She attended Amherst College, where she majored in English and Asian Studies, and the University of Texas School of Law at Austin. She has been a practicing attorney specializing in immigration law in the San Francisco Bay Area since 2008. Lisa also had a brief stint as a communications director, reimagining the design, purpose, and content of print magazines for an independent school. And right now she is in New York City, and I love this, a lifelong reader and book lover. She has as many books as her bookshelves will allow. Well, maybe a few more, and has always dreamed of having her own bookstore. My next guest is Bremond MacDougall, who is a graduate of University of Texas at Austin with a BA in Spanish. While raising her three children between Austin and New York City, she amassed a collection of many thousands of books that make up what she calls a reader's library, as opposed to a collector's library. Rather than first editions, it contains dog-eared favorites, collections from both of her grandmothers, complete with personal notes and books she has yet to read. She and her husband helped to establish Eleanor Hall at St. Andrew's School in Austin, a kindergarten building named after her late mother, was a champion of joyful learning. A board member of the Citizens Committee for Children of New York, a nonprofit that aims to advance well-being, equity, and justice for all of New York's children. She lives in New York City, and they are both owners of Quite Literally Books, a small heritage press reprinting forgotten books by American women authors to share with new generations of literary lovers. I have to tell you, folks, before I bring on the guest, these books are absolutely stunning. They are a beautiful book to give to anyone as a lovely gift. The covers are beautiful. There's a little bit about the author in the inside jacket and a little bit of history. And the print, if you're middle-aged like me, folks, the print is absolutely wonderful. And I want to welcome my two lovely guests, Lisa Cooper and Bremond MacDougall. Welcome to Chatting with Betsy, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Yes, we're glad to be here with you.
You are welcome. I love the story that you both have. You are lifelong friends since the age of 12. Can you tell the audience how you met?
We met on the first day of 7th grade at St. Andrew's Middle School in Austin, Texas. I had been at that school since 1st grade, and Lisa was a new student. It was a very small school. We had 30 kids in our class. And I think we were friends almost immediately. We sort of shared a sense of humor, and we had the same taste in music, and we love to read, and we love to study, and we love to learn. And yeah, we sort of hit it off right off the bat, and we have stayed friends all this time. Another person who I met on the first day of 7th grade is now my husband. So I tend to respond to people.
Although you guys haven't been together the whole time.
No, that's true. But we've been married 30 years.
You didn't start dating in 7th grade.
But that is true. But I did meet him then.
That's true.
Yeah. So, so we've been friends ever since.
Well, that is great. So this is quite a story because you met. You both have, I think you met in the library, and you have a love of books that you have shared all these years.
Yes. Reading has definitely been a foundational part and continues to be a really important part in our friendship. That's definitely one of the many ways we like to relate to one another.
And we didn't meet in the library, but we found out, later that we had sort of similar experiences as children, and we're probably at the Austin Public Library at the same time at some point, because we both have memories as, 5 or 6 year olds, going to the Austin Public Library, going to the children's section, which was downstairs, which I can remember. I can remember walking down those stairs and getting my first library card when I was able to write my own name. My grandmother took me. I had one grandmother that took me to the library to get my library card. My other grandmother was a librarian at the Austin Public Library. And Lisa spent countless Saturdays there after she was able to write her name on her library card.
Right. My parents always said the Austin Public Library was the best babysitter they ever had.
I enjoyed going to the library myself. I used to go to the public library in my town, and also the school had a library. And this might sound cuckoo to some people, but I used to love the smell of the books.
Absolutely. No, we are right here with you. we have that as part of our little intro manifesto to why we do what we do. A lot of it has to do with how pleasurable it is to have a really good book in your hand. You mentioned the cover art and everything, the size of the print, but the other thing that you may have experienced is our books smell great.
Yeah.
They really do. They were printed on amazing paper called Munkin paper, and it's the feel of the paper in your hand and the smell of the paper, very good.
The smell of a library, the smell of a bookstore, both of those are the kind of smells that I think just, instantly where you are. If somebody blindfolded me and took me to a library, I think I would know where I was, because there's a book aroma.
Someone needs to bottle the scent of a bookstore. That's be such a good room deodorizer.
Yes.
I probably wear it as a perfume, a candle, exactly.
Well, I'm 67, Lisa, in Bremond, and I could remember the smell, like that musty smell of the school library books. I mean, they would just smell, and I would save up my money, and I would go to my local drugstore, 5 and Dime, they would call it back then, and I loved reading about the Bobbsey twins. So I
remember.
I don't know if you ever heard of those series.
Yeah,
but
my dad, who is much older than you, has a collection of the Bobbsey twins that he read.
Oh, wow.
They've been around for, he's 20 years older than you are, maybe 25. But yeah, they've been around. The Bobbsey twins have been there for a long time.
Yes.
I probably have.
I really loved those books, and we would have a book fair. There was 4 kids in my family, so I was only allowed to get, maybe 2 or 3 books at a time. So I'd like for you to both share, how did you come about deciding to have your own publishing company?
Well, I'm not sure that we've said the name of our publishing company yet. We've said our first names, but it's quite literally books.
I literally books. Thank you. I forgot that.
I don't think you said that
yet. Thank you very much. This is what happens when I take some medicine the day of a show. Thank you. I thought I said that. Thank you.
I think we started, we've always loved books and talked about books and talked about what we're reading and what we're not reading. And I think during the pandemic, we were at an author talk just last night, and the woman sort of had the same sort of story. She said, somebody asked her when she decided to do her book, and she said, well, the pandemic happened, and I was, at home, and I had, everything was sort of different, and so I decided to do this. And that's kind of that's kind of where we were. The pandemic and the lockdown started, and is it lockdown? It wasn't lockdown.
It was.
Okay. Yeah. And that just sounds
I like how you put that out of your mind. But yeah, it was a
penal.
Lockdown. It was.
But
that way.
We started sort of talking on the phone more often because in the years before that we'd talk to each other occasionally, but we were busy with busy lives,
little kids
and all that, and so we were talking more, and we both turned 50, and we were talking about what was something we could do, and what was something we could do together, and then what was something we could do together with books, and for whatever reason, starting a publishing company seemed like a reasonable answer to
in retrospect seems crazy that that's where we went. But I think we were really intrigued by the idea of, first of all, we both really love research, like diving deep into, these rabbit trails of who used to be popular in 1932 and is no longer ever heard of. It feels like you're on a treasure hunt, and I think we both enjoy that piece of it. We've always been big frequenters of used bookstores and love to, come up with a copy of something or another that sounds really intriguing that we've never heard of before and was published, 50 or more years ago. So that's just something that we thought would be fun to do, and this notion of working on a project together. At the time, we weren't living in the same place, so we were, in totally different places, so it seemed sort of silly to think of doing a bookstore together. So that's how publishing sort of came into our...
Yeah. But I think that we thought it would be fun. I think that was the original thing was, well, that sounds like fun. Let's try it. And it has been.
And also meaningful. I mean, again, that turning 50 thing was real, where we're sort of reflecting on what we've done so far and what we'd like to do next, and just being a little thoughtful about how do we want to spend our time and who do we want to spend it with. We were the books. Yeah. Books and people who want to read other, and other people who want to read books and talk about books. Yep, that's our community.
Yeah. Wow, that is really cool. Now, how did you both come up with the name Quite Literally Books?
That was, we spent a couple of weeks throwing ideas around, and they were getting stranger and stranger and more divorced from our original thinking. And it was a flash of inspiration late one night. And the minute we thought of it, it was that's it. We can go to sleep now. Yeah. And we never looked back. It was funny. It was so torturous getting there, but it really was just a flash.
That is really that is so cool. I mean, to be friends for that long and to go into business together, I think that is quite an accomplishment. I really do. So kudos to both of you.
Thank you. It's also just a real blessing to be able to do something like this. There's no doubt. We've all had jobs that we've had to do because we have to do them, and this is so much a labor of love. We're learning something new every single day because neither Bremond nor I have any background in publishing, so everything has been new to us. And we're very fortunate that we get to do this together, and we've hired some really amazing people for our team that, share their expertise and thinking with us.
Set us straight occasionally.
Set us straight.
Why can't we do this?
But also have been really open to the why can't we do it this way. Some decisions we make are not what a traditional publisher would do, and we have amassed a team that is really flexible with that, and that's been great.
And do you both like to read similar books, or your tastes completely different?
I would say if there were a Venn diagram of our reading tastes, there is a very sizable overlap, but I would also say our tastes are different. And I think the reason why this works is because I have always respected Bremond's opinion, pretty much on everything, actually, but definitely in books. And so when she tells me something is compelling or she just loves it, then I know that I need to read it. I may not have the exact same feeling about it, but it's always worth my time to do it. And then we always have the best conversations afterwards, which is, you know, another reason to engage in books is like what it opens the door to afterwards, the conversations you can have with people. It's incredible.
And Lisa recommends
yes,
really like books that I know will be interesting, like that I know will be probably different than what I would normally be reading. And so that's exciting. You know, it's fun to
we push each other, right?
Yeah.
Because we know what we like,
right?
But we push each other and as readers, and also, again, like the conversations that come out of the things that we read aren't like, it's organic because we've read a book, but otherwise we probably wouldn't be talking about those things, you know, like, and even really random things. Yeah.
I had a love for reading, like I had mentioned earlier, ever since I was a child. If I was sick, home from school, I'd bring up a whole bunch of books up to read as I stayed in bed. And just reading a book takes you anywhere in the world. It opens your mind to being in places that I never went to, but I'm there when I read a book. And yes, you can have wonderful conversations with people about books. And I've even said on this show to other guests that you never know whose life you could change by giving them a book as a gift, depending on what that book is. It could change their whole life direction.
Absolutely.
You never know.
Yeah. And it doesn't just take you to a place you've never been, but to a time you've never been. Books are just so, I don't know, expansive. Like they're
expansive in terms of thinking too, right?
Yeah.
In all ways, like including, like, I think books are really central to building empathy for people who are not like you, because you can almost quite literally step into their shoes when you engage, you know, in a book.
Yeah. And I definitely identify with you taking books up to be to read while you were sick. And I also, anytime we were doing some big family project, and I'm also one of four, like, you know, raking the leaves or, I don't know, something big, at some point I would hear people going, "Where's Bremond? Has anybody seen Bremond?" Oh, they call me Burr. But and I would have snuck off to some little nook somewhere and be reading a book. And that was, you know, I would do whatever we were doing for a little while, and then I would just sort of stay and go read my book, because that's what I really wanted to be doing.
No, I remember at night, like, you know, after I was put to bed, getting up, sneaking over to the door, which was always open a crack, and there'd be this like light shining, you know, from the hall into the bedroom, and I would crouch by the door with my book in that little sliver of light so that I could read. And it was great because I could hear my mother. She wore these slippers that made a click-clack sound in the hall. So I could hear she was approaching, and I would know I needed to, like, withdraw from the, exactly.
Oh, that's funny. I did the same thing. I did the same thing. I would do that, and I had an overhead light, and I would put that on, and then if I heard my parents coming, I would hurry up, shut it off, or I would take a flashlight and hide underneath the covers with my book.
Yeah.
Until I heard them come.
Tried and true ways to get your reading in.
Yeah. Oh, that was so fun.
Yeah.
I mean, that feeling of, like, just wanting to be inside a story like that, I love when you have that moment with the book. I have to say, as an adult, like, I feel it less and less.
There's just so much else taking your attention.
Right.
Like, it's just so hard.
But falling into a book like that is, like, the best feeling. I love it. It's like true escapism.
Yes, it is. I always was a reader, and now with doing the show, I try to read a book that the author has written, and that's not always possible sometimes. But I have learned such appreciation for the writers that I never had before. The research that goes into a book, the time that goes into it. And I really, would take that for granted or never thought about it until I did this show, what people go through to write a book.
There was one author that we were looking at, and we ended up not publishing her book, but I feel badly as I tell this story about what she went through to write, that we're not republishing her. But there's this one author who she followed her husband, or actually I guess he was actually her boyfriend, to a gold panning camp outside of San Francisco. And so she was spending her days panning for gold. She had one child with her, and at night she would borrow the typewriter from the postmistress in the nearest little town and, by candlelight be writing. And when you think about what that must have been like, to be out in the sun panning for gold all day, every day, also taking care of a little boy, and I don't know what you have to do to keep a tent clean, but I'm sure there was work that was being done just to put food on your little makeshift table and
campfire.
Exactly. And then at night to go haul your cookies into town, get a typewriter, bang it out for a few hours, and that kind of commitment. I don't think I could do that. But yes, that's sort of an extreme story, but it's by no means the only story like that.
And we think about that with our three authors that we have for our first three books.
Sure, yes.
Fauset, Dorothy, Canfield, Fisher, and Amelia Gardner White. All of these women were writing 70, 80, 90, 100 years ago, but they also had, other lives. They had families, and they had husbands and children and
jobs
and jobs, and they not only found the time to write and in some cases write very prolifically, but they also got them published, which, women were not as published as much as men, certainly, and the topics that they were writing about were sometimes not things that were seen as books that men would want to read, and therefore maybe, not as valuable or not as worthy of publication as, I don't know, a male author's work. And
right.
It's so impressive to think of them as doing what they did when they did it, in the 1920s, when, raising children was, homemaking was your job. That was that was what women did. But to also carve out time to do something that was really important to you in creating a book, it's pretty amazing.
Can you tell us about the three books on your inaugural list and about each book?
Where you want to start? I can start.
Okay.
So our first book is called The Homemaker by Dorothy Canfield Fisher, and we were just talking about the expectations for women, being homemakers, stay-at-home moms. And the main character in this book, her name is Eva. We find her at the beginning of the book as a very dedicated perfectionist of homemaking. So much so that she's super stressed out about it, and she makes her family super stressed out by her impossible-to-meet standards. And her three children are miserable, and her husband, who is a kind of a poet, dreamer type who goes off to work every day and is not very effective in his job, everyone's miserable doing what they're doing. And unfortunately, but also kind of fortunately, Lester has an accident and he is no longer able to work outside of the home. So Eva and Lester have to switch jobs, and Eva goes out into the workplace and finds that she has a knack for being a saleswoman, and Lester stays home with the kids and finds out that he has a knack for child rearing. And it's a book that was written in 1924, so over 100 years ago, but the themes of this book are things that we still talk about today. You know, the expectations that are put on women to be, you know, sort of perfect in everything that they do. The fact that even today, you know, the stay-at-home dad scenario is still the alternative scenario, not the given one, not the default one by a long shot. And you know, what it means to do things outside of the box that society puts you in. It's a really fascinating look at that and feels completely relevant. The writing and you know, the themes and the characters definitely hold up, and it's a really great read.
And the author, Dorothy Canfield Fisher, is an interesting character herself. She wrote a number of books, but she is also credited with bringing the Montessori method of education to the United States, which is touched upon in The Homemaker. You see some of the experiential learning and the hands-on learning that are sort of hallmarks of Montessori. You see in her book as well, in The Homemaker. And Dorothy Canfield Fisher sort of lived the homemaker a little bit. She was the breadwinner in her family, and her husband raised the children, at least for part of the time. And she's also a little, you know, she's complicated, as we all are, but she is complicated in that she was very sort of ahead of her time in terms of education and in terms of being a champion for civil rights and things like that. But she was also mired in her time as part of the eugenics movement in the state of Vermont that was trying to urge only the right kind of people to settle in Vermont and only the right kind of people to reproduce in Vermont, which, you know, resulted in, or I'm not sure it resulted in, but proposed sterilization of certain people and certain populations. So she had, you know, she had two sides, as, you know, a lot of us do. So yeah, but we think it's a really great book, and it'd be a really great book club book. So if anybody's got a book club out there, there's even a guide at the end to help people if they want to, if they would like to use The Homemaker as a book club book.
Our second book is
great. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. Our second book is Plum by Jessie Redmon Fauset, and this, again, a very interesting book with a very interesting author. The book itself is about this young Black woman named Angela who is living in Philadelphia with her parents. She's very gifted in the arts, very ambitious, beautiful, and when her parents pass away, she decides to move to New York City and live life as a white woman. Because she is light-skinned, if she is not in the company of her sister who is dark-skinned, people assume that she's white. So she makes this difficult decision to leave her community and her sister and move to New York. And it's all about, you know, the choices that she makes, the things that she gains, and everything that she gives up. Because what she finds out is, yes, life as a white person affords more opportunities, but as a white woman, she still has a lot of limitations put on her. Again, it's a story about, like, trying to live outside of the boxes that society puts you in. And it's a fascinating book that, again, very relevant conversation today around identity and passing, what it means to let someone else tell you what your identity is versus your being able to decide for yourself.
Assume something and then it turns into your responsibility to set them straight.
It's a really interesting take on that. Written in 1929, so again, almost 100 years old, but feels very fresh today. And the author, Jessie Redmon Fauset, is a really interesting person who has definitely not gotten her due. She was credited for launching the careers of people like Langston Hughes during the Harlem Renaissance. She worked as the literary editor for the Crisis magazine, which was the NAACP's magazine, and she wrote 4 novels herself, but for a number of reasons, those have gone, they're not forgotten totally, but they're definitely under the radar.
They're not mainstream at all.
Yeah, and so we wanted to shine a light on Plum because we actually like all of her books, but this one especially spoke to us. And, we've been reading contemporary novelists like Brit Bennett. She wrote The Vanishing Half a couple years ago, and the themes are just so strikingly similar. Definitely a good pairing, I think, if you want to do a little study on identity and passing. The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett, Plum Bun, and then, of course, Nella Larsen's Passing, which was written in the same year as Plum Bun, but has, for a number of reasons, maybe.
And I don't know what they are. Having read both of them, I'm really not sure.
Well, I think that you had a really good point, which was that, it's all about, like, what perspective are we learning the story from? In Plum Bun, Angela is the protagonist, and so we are following her around, and she's the one that's making all these decisions to deny her sister, to leave her community, and she has a super pragmatic outlook on life, but I wouldn't say it makes her highly likable, whereas in Passing, you're seeing the story is unfolding with someone looking upon the person who is passing and passing judgment on that, right? And so it's told from a different perspective, and it might be one that's more palatable because of that. I think that was a really good point you had.
It just shows that even though these books are 100 or close to 100 years old, things haven't changed.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean, it's just people will put people in boxes and will force their story on others of what you can and cannot do, what's expected of you. And women, well, especially in the 1920s, were expected to stay at home, and child rearing always, and the responsibilities of the home always was on the woman. The women. That's just how it was, and it still is. I mean, maybe the younger generation, I don't know, is more, equal in the responsibilities of the home, but it was usually the female. I look back, my grandmother, my mother's mother, she ran a laundry store and put on a spread every weekend, had people over. I don't know how she did it.
And I remember, my husband was definitely more involved in our kids' lives growing up, but I remember if my dad picked me up from school, that was a big deal. I think I remember it happening like twice, because it just didn't, that was my mom's job, and he was at his job, and when he appeared sort of unexpectedly during the day, it was like, oh, wow, something's going on, something is special. And I don't know that kids have that perspective anymore.
I think the studies have shown that even when the two parents are both working, that the bulk of
the mom and
the child rearing still falls mostly on the women. And whether it's actually, in terms of like time spent, certainly oftentimes in like having to be sort of responsible for the decisions, like, or if somebody is sick or whatever, who ends up,
and who keeps track of the dentist appointment, who keeps track of,
who's managing things.
And that I think is most often.
Not always, but definitely I think all studies point in the direction of being responsible for holding that.
And the putting people in boxes and assuming things about them, and then being angry when they turn out to be wrong. That's something that we saw a lot in Plum Bun, which is I don't know. I find that very interesting. The idea that you have assumed something about someone, and then when you turned out to be wrong, that it was their fault for misleading you. I think that still happens too. That's still a thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of these books, are about. We were talking earlier about things that concern women. Meaning the home, relationships, the interior lives of women is like what all three of our books are about, and that hasn't really changed in the last 100 years. Like maybe it's because it's just human, and these are the things that we care about. But that's definitely why they've held up over time. Mm-hmm. And our third book, which doesn't have any major driving theme, is still very compelling. We like to say that it's called The Pink House by Nella Gardner White, and this one is more of a, like Bremond likes to say, it's a cozy up, on a couch with a cup of tea kind of read. It's like a gothic sort of feel, romance / big house with lots of secrets, family dysfunction, and it's all told from the viewpoint of, at the beginning of the story, she's a young girl, Nora, who has been recently orphaned, and she has to go live with an aunt and uncle that she doesn't really know very well, and their children. And all she really wants is to fit in and feel welcome in some way, and that is not the house for it, and she has to learn how to navigate that. And she's a watcher and a big thinker, and so we just spend a lot of time in her mind, and it's a very quiet book, but it's super compelling. The characters are interesting, and you get to sort of go for it takes place over how many years, Spur? I don't remember. We watch her grow up, basically. Yeah, and it's a slow burn, and it's very, very good.
And all three of our books have good resolution.
They all have satisfying endings.
Yeah. No one is left hanging. Which I appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
They all sound fantastic.
Yeah. And Nella Gardner White, who wrote The Pink House, wrote many novels, and she is out of print and mostly unknown.
Although very well regarded in her day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so crazy.
Well reviewed. Mentioned in the same breath as Calvin Trillin, maybe, or was it Devilins, or I can't.
Who was it? And I can't remember. This is bad. See, I know our memories are not good sometimes. It was
that's okay.
And Saul Bellow and Arthur Miller.
Yeah.
They mentioned in the same sentence with them in a positive way.
And yet she's just gone. And I believe we found her just poking around in the library. We came to a shelf that had a bunch of books by the same woman, and we thought, well, what is this? And that's how we got to her.
Mm-hmm. I think we will be publishing more of her books. She has so many, and
a lot,
and they're
good.
Good reads.
Yeah.
How did you decide when you were starting, quite literally, books, of what authors or you wanted to introduce and what books? Because there's just so much to choose from.
There's so much to choose from, but it's hard to find. I mean, we've read probably hundreds of books in the last three years. Yeah. And it sort of comes down to what you think is a really good book. And two of our books are in the public domain, which is great because that means that we can just print them without permission. The Pink House is still under copyright, so we had to get permission for that one. And sometimes it's hard to get permission. There are some books that we would love to publish, but we're at dead ends in terms of getting permission to publish them because they're still under copyright.
And sometimes we can't even find the person from whom we need to get the permissions. Like the way, it truly is like being a private investigator. You have to use all means in front of you, which in our case is mostly the internet. Reading obituaries and reaching out to publishers that may own the rights. There is a database at the University of Texas that has a lot of these, literary estate information for writers, but it's not by any means complete. And so it is just a whole lot of sleuthing and getting lucky. And even if you get lucky, you may still reach a dead end if someone, doesn't really want their grandmother's book published, or that it does happen. And we do have a shelf here of books right in front of us of things that we hope we'll be able to publish someday in the future, but are shelved for the time being.
I was going to ask you, I'm glad you brought that up because I have it down here to ask you about, because I was wondering about copyright issues. How do you go about that? You see a book that you like, you read the book, but you get the copyright issues from the author because they're not alive.
Yeah, you have to try to figure it out. And sometimes we're looking for somebody right now, and the heir's name is
like Stephen Johnson.
Yeah, and Stephen, there are umpteen Stephen Johnsons in Ancestry.com. It could be any one of them. I wonder if it was easier, like when you actually did have phone books and you could go to the library and look up and call all the Stephen Johnsons. I don't know. Can't really do that anymore. But that might have been a way. Although there'd probably be 2,000 Stephen Johnsons.
I was going to say that's a lot of Stephen Johnsons.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Right, but, especially a common name.
Yeah, exactly. So we're always hopeful for a name that is unusual.
Yes.
A Bremond MacDougall kind of name.
Exactly.
Surely there can't be that many.
Not a Lisa Cooper kind of name.
Yeah.
And your books are already out. Your first 3 books that you mentioned, they were out on April 7th. When do you plan on putting out your other books? Do you have like a set schedule? How many books a year you'll be putting out books?
Yes. So our production schedule is going to be we're putting out 3 books in the spring, 3 books in the fall. So our next grouping will be coming out at the beginning of November.
And so we are hard at work already. Starting to get those typeset and proofread and all of that stuff because November will be here pretty soon.
Yeah, the way this year is flying by.
Yeah, and I agree with what you said at the beginning, Betsy. These are great books, and Mother's Day is coming, so just a little plug. If you go to PlumLiterallyBooks.com, your mom might really like these books. So.
Oh, and we do have a Mother's Day special.
Sure, yeah, right.
We have a book bundle, so you can get all 3 of our books. Plus, we will also give you one of our really amazing tote bags as just a little free gift for your mom or your mother person, whoever that may be.
But you have to make them carry it.
They have to promise to carry it around.
Yeah.
It does say quite literally books
on
it.
So people ask them about it.
They're super cute. We got these tote bags designed with like a lot of extra pockets inside because we need lots of pockets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That sounds great.
Lots of books.
And so your website, and is this where people can connect with you, quite literally books.com? And they order the books in there and they could contact you?
Yes, that's a great place to write to us. We have you can click on our email there and send us a note. We really would love if people would tell us what they think of our books. And also they can order our books from there. We will wrap them.
We will send them right from our office.
Yes, we wrap each one by hand, and they're super cute. And if someone wants to order our books from, say, their local independent bookstore, they can be ordered through our distributor. Just ask your local independent bookstore for this particular book, and they will be able to get it.
I also like how you have on the inside the book jacket that you kind of, tell the reader, this is, I'm going to paraphrase, an older book, so some of the wording is from back then, in case people might take, offense to it. Do you find that anything in your books are controversial by today's standards?
I mean, maybe Plum Bun in particular has racial slurs in it that are objectionable now, and they're offensive now, and they were offensive when the book was written. They were used by the author, who is a Black woman, and we have left them in our book. They're her words, and we feel like it's not for us to change them.
They were used in this particular context to show how white people, spoke of Black people, and to show, the kind of world that they lived in, the type of pejorative that they were subject to. And we felt that was important to leave in there.
Yes,
to
I agree.
Yes. We don't believe in whitewashing history, and these books are historical documents. And we do make choices in terms of, if something is not a great book, obviously we won't print it. If something is a good book that has racial views that are just too offensive to get past, and devalue the book, or espouse a viewpoint maybe that the author has, as opposed to a viewpoint that perhaps a particular character has, we will probably choose not to print it. We read a number of books that we were excited about, and then all of a sudden got, turned upside down by some scene or
casual racism.
Even like casual racism. Yeah, it's
everywhere.
It is everywhere. It is in the water we drink.
Yeah.
And so we do make decisions around that. We won't be printing something that we feel continues to have a viewpoint that is, abhorrent.
Mm-hmm. I think that it's important in a way for people to see and to read that this is how it was back then, and we shouldn't whitewash it. This is history. This is how people were unfortunately treated. And
yes.
I think it's an important lesson when people pick up a book like that to set, for them to know, because I know back when I was growing up, I wasn't taught everything about history that went on. I didn't learn until later. And I'm sure now the kids today are not taught about history the way it really was. And now you have, the books being banned, and people want to rewrite history. Excuse me. Try not to get political, but
well, and not only are these books, an opening to talk about history, but they're also an opening to talk about today. They're a way to talk about how things have not changed, and how the things that we're still as a nation grappling with.
Yeah, and we trust that our readers are capable of sort of dwelling in that really uncomfortable space, and are capable of handling and holding nuance, and can have really respectful and important conversations with one another about the things that come out of these books.
Excuse me, absolutely. What is your... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say important, but also sometimes leavened with humor, because Lisa and I do always find a way to find something not serious when we talk about books.
Well, humor is like a big part of,
teasing.
Yeah, and also, like, I feel like that's a really big piece of being human is our ability to do that, right? Not always
absolutely,
not something, but like everything has sort of like the funny side to it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
Oh, that's okay. What's your hope for Quite Literally books? What would you like the readers to know?
One of my hopes is that we get to do this for a really long time. One of my hopes is that people love the books that we pick and really engage with them and want to buy them and want to have them in their library, and that Lisa and I get to keep reading a zillion books and picking the ones we think are good for a very long time.
Yeah, I think when we first started this, one of the things that was appealing was, the relationship that Bremond and I have around books is so rich and fun to engage with one another. And we were thinking, like, what if we just met more people that like to do this, just like we do? And we know they're out there, but we've never been big, joiners of book clubs. I don't know why that is. But this idea of like kind of creating a space for people who are drawn to this kind of thing come to us, we thought might be a really wonderful way to build a community of readers that enjoy engaging the way we do.
That I agree. You know what? I just thought of this. I have an idea for you both. Did you ever think of starting your own book club with your books?
We have, actually. We have thought about it. Yeah.
We were talking about how we could do that just today.
Yeah.
Sort of a
wow.
Digital or virtual or I don't know.
Yeah. I just thought about that. Well, thank you both for coming on. I enjoyed talking to you both, and I wish you both the best of luck. Folks, I have to say this. Lisa Cooper and Bremond MacDougall did a wonderful, wonderful job with these books. I have 3 of them, their first 3, and I really want to read them. They are absolutely beautiful. The cover, the paper, the print, it is a wonderful gift to buy yourself and someone else a gift any time of the year. I don't know if this will be out before Mother's Day, but any time of the year is perfect to give someone a book. Father's Day, there's graduations coming up, right?
Right. Well, actually, I would like to say this. We talked about this quite a bit together. I think our readers are going to tend to be women, but boy, we would really encourage men to pick up a book that is written by a woman about a woman, because if you think women are confusing, this is a really great way to become less so. To really lean into the interior lives of women is how you understand women. So we would like to encourage all the men out there to pick up one of our books.
I love that. Yes, that's a great idea. Absolutely. Because how else are men going to really know about women unless they pick up a book about women and to know, what went on. But thank you so much. Folks, you heard Lisa. You're welcome. Lisa Cooper and Bremond MacDougall. They are owners of Quite Literally Books. I want to just put it out there, folks. Help them make this a success. Go on their website, which will be in the blog, and order their beautiful books. I'm telling you, you will love them. I'm old-fashioned. I can't read from a computer. I can't read from my phone due to my eye problems, but even if I didn't have them, I like to hold a book. There's nothing better to me than holding that book and flipping the pages. And I just can't say it enough, because I really think that you both did a really wonderful job. I'm not a book critic by any means. I'm just little old me here in New Jersey, but I know a beautiful book when I see one. And, folks, you will not be disappointed.
Thank you
Go ahead,
so much. That was lovely. We appreciate your support.
Thank you for letting us talk with you.
Oh, you are welcome. It is my pleasure. Folks, all the information about Quite Literally books will be in the blog that Jeannie White, who's the station manager, writes. So please read the blog. Please share the show with your friends and tell them about QuiteLiterallyBooks.com. And I want to thank Lillian Caldwell, who is CEO of Passion World Talk Radio Network that makes this all possible. If you don't already subscribe to Chatting with Betsy, please do so. It's for free on Spotify, Spreaker, iHeart, Amazon Music. And I want to give a shout-out to Lissa Warren, who is president of Lissa Warren PR, who arranged this interview, and many, many of my guests are from Lissa Warren PR. And if you're looking for a top-notch publicist, I highly recommend Lissa Warren PR. You will not be disappointed as far as I'm concerned. And, yeah, I might be a little biased. At least Lissa Warren is top-notch in her field. And as I always say at the end of my show, if you want to contact me, I'm on Facebook, Betsy E. Wurzel, Wurzel. And I have a support group for caregiver, hashtag Kick Alzheimer's Ass Movement. And as I end my show, I always say, in a world where you could be anything, please be kind and shine your light bright, because we need it now more than ever before. Thank you for listening. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate Rural Talk Radio Network, a subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Bye-bye now.